Good afternoon, everyone, and sorry for the delay. Welcome to our October 6th, 2022 board meeting. This is the last meeting, the last regular board meeting for this board of directors. And the Tnrd acknowledges that we connect with many First Nation communities across our vast regional district. And today we are located on the Kamloops territory situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The Tnrd appreciates the partnership we have with the Kamloops Secwepemc and respect the territory and land on which we gather today. Another reminder to the board, if you haven't done so already, and I haven't, please submit any travel claims or communication expenses for this year as soon as possible. And please be sure when you are signing your expense forms before handing them in. In terms of upcoming meetings and events, we have, of course, the committee of the whole meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. On November the 4th, we have a regional orientation with member municipalities. On November 17th, there will be an inaugural board meeting, and I understand that's to be held at the Sandman Center. Is that correct, Ms. Campbell? Yes. And on the 23rd, there will be a Tnrd board orientation. And on the 24th, it's back to business with a regular Tnrd board meeting. Today, in your blue folders, you will find an accountability update, a strategic plan progress report, and any mail that may have been addressed personally to you. My announcements.
The Sandman Center or the Sandman Hotel?
That's a pretty good question. I better check that out. The Sandman Hotel is the venue for not the Sandman Center.
That's correct, Chair Gillis. We'll have an orientation session at the Sandman Center, but the inaugural meeting will be at the Sandman Hotel.
Thank you. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda? I see none. Minutes? Pardon?
I turn on new business, if I may, I'll have something then. Yeah,
When you get to new business.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. That brings us to minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. That brings us to delegations and invited presentations. And we have Cookby, Roseanne Casimir, appearing before us today as a delegation, and please move to the podium, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to I'm Cookby Roseanne Casimir with the Kamloops Secwepemc. I am the chief for the Kamloops Indian Band, and I am also a BCAFN board of director, as well as the Secwepemc Nation Tribal Council tribal chief for the Secwepemc Nation. I am very honored to be here, and just really appreciate that. I know I feel a little bit on the spot because I'm not too sure what I was supposed to be presenting. So I can share, I could open up for a Q&A. I can share a little bit about what's going on with our community. And so what I'll say is that we have a lot that's going on in our community, and we're very proud of the work and the progress that has been taking place, especially knowing that these last 2 years we've been basically, going through the pandemic, and it's been, definitely crisis mode. And not only with that, but it's also, dealing with the mental health and wellness and the opioid crisis. And, knowing that during that time was also, the horrific announcement of the 215. And, I know for myself from the bottom of my heart and from our whole community, just how much appreciation that we have and extend to the city of Kamloops, the local municipality, and, the leadership throughout, and, and also, the appreciation too with our relationship with Mel Rothenberger, very pleased to be here. And, knowing that truly through those times of hardship that we really stood together and a lot of solidarity and unity and sharing of resources, and to be able to share, those worst case scenarios of everything that had happened, and looking at, our agreements that we were able to update, and the leadership that we have had throughout the organizations, being able to step up and support each other as we advanced. So many things like our fire service agreement as well, and looking at the shared resources for our water treatment plant and how we can support each other, looking at different things like our emergency operations center, and when we opened that up and how we could support the city, and most importantly vice versa, how they could support us with all the resources that the city has in abundance, and how we can share in that, and working together in those collaborations. But most importantly, I am very proud of the relationship that we have, and that we've continued to build on from, not only my term in leadership, but my predecessors, and, how far back that dates, and, knowing that it all started because of land, taxation, water, those basic needs of infrastructure, which built on. And, very proud of the fact that we've also got our shared service agreement when it comes to recreation, and, the things that we've done and participated in together. So I'm so proud of that. And also the city of Kamloops and its people, its members, its residents, its businesses, and, knowing that at any given time, just being able to walk through the downtown core, knowing that, everyone was learning the painful history in the past of our true collective histories. But, where we're at today, and looking at, those calls to action with truth and reconciliation, and just that supporting one another and doing all our part to, look at racism and discrimination in its entirety. And that's at every single level. So it's not just over here, but it's over there at home, our homes, ourselves, looking within and bringing that out towards, every single level in which we do. And it's about educating, everyone, and sharing, and looking at how we can all do our part. And this past summer, I had the opportunity to do a presentation with the Province of British Columbia Teachers Association, and to share. And well, they also too shared with me, exactly what they're doing, whether it's with the murdered, missing Indigenous women, whether it's the calls to action, whether it's, like with the 215, and what they're doing to educate and to support that advancement. It was very emotionally uplifting at every single level, and very age appropriate as well. So just knowing where we are today, it just really does give me so much hope for the future as we continue to advance. I know that with everything that's been going on, there's so many good things that are on the move, so many amazing things that are growing, like within, the community as well. And, knowing that, just this past November, we had our election as well. And, you go through all those different stages of the forming, norming, and storming, lots of that. But, most importantly, it was that continuous momentum to keep progressing and to really, perform. And that service stuff just goes with, a little bit of release. But, most importantly, things are really happening, and I really appreciate and really uphold the leadership and the technical teams that we have, respectively, to continue advancing that. And, I know there's so many questions out there as to, when it comes to things like whether it's the land question or what's next. Well, when we look at what's next is, making sure that we're both a part of, that journey together, and that we're both a part of those conversations, and that no one can fix it, but we have to be a part of it to be able to move and advance together in a good way. So there's so much more I could share, but I'm not exactly sure what you'd like me to say. I also do want to add to that, I know that, the city of Kamloops is also going through an election, and I just want to extend my appreciation for Mayor Ken and, his leadership and his supports, with him and his council and his whole team over there, and, standing and upholding, and doing everything that we've done together. And, I could speak so many good things about every single one of the council members, like Leader Judy and all those that are present here as well, and Argent, and I just want to extend that. And I know that I also extend my appreciation to for our armchair mayor. I know that I heard that you're retiring, and I hope that, yes, okay. I mean, I don't hope that you are, but but what I'm just saying is, I know for myself, from a personal level, I always love seeing your segments on TV, your little clips that you have to say, because to me, it's like that 360 bird's eye view of, the commentary that, is just kind of as a matter of fact type of thing. And I just always appreciate that, and enjoyed the meetings that we've had, over the past, while I've been serving as Cookbee chief for my community. And, I know that as you two are both going to be, moving on to, newer and bigger, better things, and to new journeys and adventures, I know that our friendship will always be, something that we can, uphold and appreciate. And always proud to say that we've done some really good things together, and we've had some amazing meetings, and the prosperous things that leadership could still be advancing as we move forward when we look at the succession planning. So I just want to say thank you again for both of you, and all that you've done, and that support.
Thanks so much, Mr. Hildebrand. You had a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gillis, and through you to Cookbee. I just wanted to also say that I know the staff of the TNRD are working hard with your staff to follow in the steps of the city of Kamloops and build a protocol agreement and build that relationship as the city has with the regional districts. So there's more to come, and I just appreciate your support in that. And we've been working closely with Shannon and your team to get to that point. So a lot more work ahead of us, but wanted to just share that point with the board.
Excellent.
Thank you. And Director Rothenberger?
Thank you. Welcome, and thanks for those words. As Mr. Hildebrand said, we've had a number of excellent meetings, you and I and the band and the TNRD, to discuss ways of enhancing our good relationship and possibly following the example that you've set with the city. We're a bit envious of that, but we hope to continue on that path. And I have a question for you that might be a bit of a tough one, but it's one that comes up in the context of these discussions, and that is, and I hear it from the public, not just internally, the possibility of an actual structural relationship at this level. At some point, perhaps having direct representation from the band on this regional district board, keeping in mind that there are quite a goodly number of bands within the boundaries of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. So it presents some challenges, but I wondered if you have any thoughts on the possibility of that, whether it would be worthwhile to get into that more deeply, and what it might look like in your view.
All right, so a couple of things. First, I just wanted to comment in regards to the TNRD protocol and the MOU. That is something that we would definitely, want to further in advance, because we have so many things to build on. That leads into the relationship, I think, is absolutely goodly as well. I love that word. But, I think it would be very beneficial, especially when we're looking at, true, government to government relationships. And when we're looking at tax jurisdiction, hospital taxation, when we're looking at extension of boundaries, when we're looking at, how that looks and how that impacts, and knowing that we also have service agreements that also fall within, a lot of those different certain areas as well. So I think it would be something that would be very welcoming. And that is something that could be, very in the near future progress towards.
Thank you. Director Quinn.
Thank you. Thank you, Kupri Casimir. I hope I keep that right. I just want to publicly thank you and Chief Loring from SIM for the support you offered on the Little House Warrior situation. Unfortunately, none of us have been successful, but I just want to personally and publicly thank you. Thanks.
I most recently heard that Kupri Shelley Loring is stepping down from her chieftain role. For myself, I've always admired her leadership and always stood in solidarity. And, when she asked me to stand with her, no hesitation, and to support her, with the protest activity and the importance of being able to move forward in a good way. It was an honor to be able to do that, and for those that have benefited.
I just wanted to publicly thank you. Thanks.
Sorry, Director Singh.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. Kupri, it's just wonderful to see you here today, and our very good friendship. And I just two things I wanted to say. One was a comment, one was a question. The comment is, as I shared with Chief and Council, probably also Dr. Duty has his candidates for mayor. The level of leadership that you've shown around the Escalade, the missing in 215 has been incredible. It's exemplary, and I think that this moment in history has moved reconciliation in Canada to a new level. I don't think the Pope would have apologized. I don't think any of that would have happened unless you folks had handled that the way you had. So I raise my hands to you for that. This is incredible stewardship, and it really gives people hope, renewed hope and reconciliation. So thank you, first of all, for that. I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude for how you and the council and the community handled all that really tragic and important work. So thank you so much. The question relates to your role as chief of the tribal council, which I think is sort of more regional. It's kind of like a TNRD for the council. As I understand it, I'm not very familiar. So can you talk maybe a bit about what that does and how we can maybe work regionally, with the tribal council, with TNRD as well?
That is an excellent question. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you for your comment, and, just to also, share just with that, again, that's something that we couldn't have done alone. And it was really about, all our friends and family, leadership, locally and everywhere that pulled together to support. And so appreciate that. And when it comes to, so I am the chief for the tribal nation, for the Shuswap Nation. So we consist of 9 bands, and throughout this here local area. Throughout Shuswap-Makulu, there is 17. There once was 32, and because of the pox and disease and loss of some reserves, so we're down to 17. And so the 17 of us, we do work together quite closely on some initiatives, and number one is being our health. And so there is, through the health, that we all pull together, and we're all consistently very upfront and a part of. So we are looking at many ways at the tribal council to, bring us all back together again and work together, truly as a nation. We are having a lot of dialogue right throughout. And we have so many different unique areas throughout the nation that is so incredibly beautiful. And we want to just be able to showcase and to bring it together to show the strengths, of each one, and to bring it together as one. So as a nation, there's a lot of different shared areas. So being nomadic and looking at the historical values and traditions and cultures, it was like seasonal rounds. So, you know, it was the movement, the momentum and how that took place. And so like in some of the areas are very rich with the medicines and the traditional medicines and the fishing and, you know, so those types of resources are all shared. And so knowing that when we look at the relationship that we could have with the TNRD and looking at the Shuswap Nation, it was the Shuswap Nation through SNTC who had that first protocol that was signed. So that is something I have brought up to look at being able to resurface and update. And, you know, looking at, yes, the Kamloops, we are in the direct ancestral area here. So when we look at our specific area would be like the city of Kamloops. We also know that other First Nation communities, they have like interests as well. So, but looking at from the nation perspective, you know, we're all part of that nation. And so like, for instance, if I go over to Simk, over to Barrier, I'll acknowledge, you know, Simk being, you know, of, you know, the Shuswap Nation tribal area, just like TTS is of the Shuswap tribal area, just like over in the Sconlith and, you know, the others acknowledge their areas, but collectively knowing that we are all part of one. And there's about just over 15,000 First Nation, you know, that are spread out within the Shwapmik Ulu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, Director Rain.
Thank you, Casimir. I can't imagine when you signed up to be chief that you could ever have foreseen what was coming down the road. And on behalf of all the residents in this area, I must say, not only I think have we come to admire how you handle some very, very difficult situations, I think more importantly, we've learned to respect leadership. You have provided tremendous leadership for your people in the most difficult situation. And I think we're all very, very proud to how you and your people have handled this. So congratulations, well done. And I hope one day we will see the tribal council or representatives at this table. I support Director Rothenberger. I think it's an important step forward. I don't know how we get there, but we should get there. Thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. And I believe that we will get there.
Thank you. And thank you, Cookby Roseanne Casimir, for joining the TNRD board this afternoon and for your remarks. I'd ask you to remain there at the podium.
Okay.
You use the mic and then I can do that so that people online can hear us. You stand by the. Okay.
So, on behalf of the regional district and the Thompson-Nicola Regional Library, it is an honor to present to you the library's first Read poster. Ms. Moore, if you would, please. The library's first One Book, One Community program celebrated local author is Michelle Good. Five Little Indians tells of a haunting and hopeful story of 5 young residential school survivors set in East Side Vancouver. It encouraged residents to read for truth and reconciliation and gain a deeper understanding of the atrocities of residential schools. 5 Little Indians was the library's highest circulated item in 21-22. We also acknowledge the partners of the One Book, One Community program, Thompson Rivers University, and the Caribou Regional District Library System. And we thank you, Cookby, for lending your profile to this initiative and for championing literacy literacy is so important to all of us. This read poster sets a high bar for the Thompson-Nicola Regional Library, and it will be made available at libraries locally across BC and nationwide.
Wow.
My pleasure.
That is incredible. That is really incredible. You know, when I think about what has happened, what has taken place, and this moment in time, the importance of education, and that education falls in line with literacy and reading and knowing the collective history, but most importantly, the educational pieces that go with that. And, you know, I know that I'm truly honored and truly grateful to be a part of, you know, this pivotal point in history. And, you know, what it means to not only us as First Nations, but to all of us as human beings, as children of somebody, and the importance of, you know, educating ourselves and to be a part of that. Thank you. Thank you.
Please come and have.
I just want to say thank you to each and every single one of you. Thank you for the invitation to be here, to participate in some of the dialogue. And that is a huge, huge, huge surprise, and very honored. And this is inclusivity. This is about, you know, being a part of something together. And this is a part of the journey that we're all on together. And thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for everything. And I look forward to tomorrow. I look forward to our continued dialogue. I look forward to working together with each and every single one of you, and extend my heartfelt and total appreciation for all that we're doing. So, Cook's job.
Well, the rest of the agenda looks kind of mundane now. That brings us to bylaws, the delegation of authority bylaw. Here's, excuse me, a report from the General Manager of Corporate and Legislative Services. I presume you've read it. And there is a series of recommendations, 3.
Move recommendation 1.
Is there any discussion? Director Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When do I propose an amendment? Is now the time.
This would be a pretty good time, I think.
Thank you. Under section 4.11, it currently reads, all contracts and agreements between regional district and a third party must be approved and signed by any two of the following persons: by the chair, administrative officer, corporate officer, general manager, or chief financial officer. I'd like to propose an amendment to read in the 4.11, the must be signed and approved by the chair and any one of the following persons, and I would so move that, and I can explain why.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion with respect to the amendment?
Speaking to the motion, the amended motion or the amendment motion, or whatever it is, I would like to, in the past, we've gotten ourselves into trouble without reference to signing contracts and stuff, without reference to the board. So this could, the way it was worded, cut the chair out of it, and I'd rather not that happen. The chair should be aware of what we're signing along with any one of the others. That's why I propose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Quinn. Is there any further discussion? I would simply add to that, that I had a discussion with Ms. Campbell on this subject. And she assured me that there would be very rare circumstances under which a contract or agreement would be executed. But she did agree that the board should at least be made aware that this was happening, and the reason for adding that, I appreciate the amendment, and with the addition of the chair to the signatories, that will mean that the board is at least through its chair made aware of what is going on. Director Rain.
Just perhaps a friendly amendment, chair or vice chair. So that if the chair wasn't capable, the vice chair could be there.
I would consider that a friendly amendment. I don't know about the
Perfect.
second.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Quinn. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. Just to provide the rest of the board for some context on this section. So the intention here is when we were reviewing other delegation of authority bylaws, this is one of the most common sections. So we, of course, can't account for every possible agreement that may come before the board. However, I think we've done a pretty good job in this bylaw. So it'll be very, very rare circumstance where an agreement will come to us and we'll scratch our heads and say, well, I'm not sure where this falls under what section of the bylaw. So the intent here is from our perspective, I don't think that there'll be any agreements that would fall under this section that would be of a really significant nature. It's more just for those rare one-off agreements that don't fall under any of the other provisions of this bylaw.
Thank you, Director Quinn.
No, thank you to the chair, to staff. This is not meant to slag staff. This is something that historically we've had occasional problems with, and I think this would clean it up a little bit. So that's why I propose the amendment. It's not to the rest of it's good.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? In terms of the amendment, all in favor? Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, the amendment is carried. That takes us to, I guess that takes us to recommendation number 2. Number 1 still has to be voted upon as amended, sorry. So, Ms. Campbell.
Chair Gillis. So after first or second reading, you can make, you can request changes to the bylaw. So you don't need to actually vote on the amendment that you've made to the bylaw. You just read, you'll just pass second reading as amended.
Okay,
hope you
thank
pass
you.
second
Then
reading.
that would take us to number 2, that the third reading, right?
Second reading as amended.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. That takes us to recommendation number 2. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried. That takes us to number 3. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried. That takes us to item number 7.2. That is there are 4 recommendations, I think. Yes, with respect to the Fire Protection Services operational bylaw. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? It's carried. Is there any discussion? None. Seeing so, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That too is carried. That takes us to item number 8, I hope. Reports. There is a verbal report from our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Gillis, and good afternoon, Board of Directors. I just have a few topics to share, as well as a short presentation providing an update on our forensic audit progress, as well as the results from our strategic plan to date. And I think I've provided a copy in your folders, so you do have a copy to take away. So firstly, as a way of an update, is I'm pleased to let you know about our partnership with the City of Kamloops and the appointment of a community services officer at the North Kamloops Library. You may have heard this in the media recently. This one-year pilot project will see our private security service replaced at this location by a community services officer. We are especially pleased with the training CSOs receive in working with vulnerable populations, the focus on developing relationships and their strong connection to community services, supporting our most challenged patrons. We are committed to creating a safe and secure environment for all users of our library system. We are looking forward to working with the city to develop new solutions to address common concerns and strengthen our communities. Continual monitoring and evaluation of this initiative will support the pilot's success, and Judy Moore, our chief librarian, will be providing updates throughout the next year on the success of this pilot. So wanted to let the group know that. Next, a quick update on the election, now just over a week away, as I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of. I think so. I've been watching a few TV shows the last few nights. Yesterday was our first advanced voting opportunity here at the Tnrd, and that was very successful. I had a chance to vote actually for the first time now that I've just moved to the outskirts of the city of Kamloops on First Nations land. So what I wanted to highlight for you today is our new Tnrd Voting App, and you also may have heard about this. But another talented manager that we have, Nato, our GIS manager, along with her team, have developed an amazing app and a tool for our residents, which will not only help now, but in the future. And I think Na is on Zoom. She'll be talking here in a moment. But this voting locations app aims to improve voter turnout by making the needed information more accessible to our residents. So I'd like to call on Na to walk you through a short demo that you'll see here on screen.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Hildebrand, and good afternoon, Chair and Board of Directors. My name is Nga To. My team and I look after business solutions and GIS at the regional district. As you know, elections by voting for the office of director are taking place for 6 out of 10 Tnrd electoral areas. Our elections team has done a superb job securing voting venues, and our communications team has been busy getting elections information out to those who need the information. What we have found in previous elections is that voters do not necessarily know which electoral area they live in, and those on the borders between a municipality and a regional district may be unsure of where they should vote. The voting locations application that my team has created helps to answer questions such as, what is my electoral area? Or is there an election in my electoral area? And where can I vote? So let's take a look at the application. So you just see the voting locations application on your screen there. In order to access this, as Mr. Hildebrand has mentioned, it is available on our elections webpage. It is embedded in the website, but they can also open up the voting locations application on a new browser, which is what I have done here. We provide some information, same language that is available in our elections webpage. We provide other information such as mail ballot voting, and as well as tooltips for people to use this application, as well as the contact information if they have any questions about the elections or any questions about using the application. So let's get into using the application. So the orange dots that you see on your screen, these are advanced voting locations throughout the regional district. And the blue dots that you see on your screen here, those are the general day voting locations throughout the regional district. The purple, the light purple, are our First Nations lands in the regional district. So the users can go into a search function here and they can type in their address. So let's take a look at 60 Savannah Street, and they're presented with some options here. So this is the address that I'm looking for. So I will click on that. It will zoom to the location of the map. And then to the left side here, you'll see that it returns the address. We're looking at 60 Savannah Street. The community is Savannah. And here is the information that they'll also need. So electoral area J is the electoral area that this particular address is located in. We link to information about candidates and voting eligibility as well too on this site. So they can click on this site or on this link and it will take them directly to that information. But below here, you'll see that it presents to them a list of voting opportunities. So here's the advanced voting, and then below that are the general day voting locations. The list is sorted by date, followed by community names, and then followed by the actual voting location names. So as Mr. Hildebrand had mentioned, our first advanced voting took place yesterday. So that is why you do not see the October 5th advanced voting location on here, because it filters out dates that is no longer relevant to the user. And in terms of the information that's presented as well, it also provides them with a link to Google Maps so they can get directions if they wish. So let's take a look at that. So at 60 Savannah Street, I'm going to take a look at the community that is closest to me. And I see that there's one here. I'm just going to click on the directions. It will open up Google Maps and it will prompt them to enter in an address so they can get the directions. So here I will type in 60 Savannah Street. And it presents me with directions if that is what I need. So it also provides information for First Nations as well in our community to find out which polling stations are available to them. And for that, we have search. They can search on their First Nation reserve names. So as I start typing, it will return some results for me. So say I'm living on Nisconnet IR2. I will click on that and it takes me to the location of the map. And then again, to the left, it returns the information that I need. So I am within Tnrd Electoral Area L, and these are my advanced voting locations. And these are my general day voting locations. And then similar to the other example I provided, they can take a look at what time, what date, and so on that's available to them and make their selection as to which they vote. They can also click on this print or export to PDF if they wish to keep this information. And they can save it as a PDF or send it to the printer, and it will have the map as well as the voting locations that are available to them. And the links to Google Maps still works in this PDF. They can also look at if they're not quite sure where they live, but they know that they are somewhere in this area, they can also just interact with the map. They can pan or zoom to it, click on any location on the map, and it will also return the information to them. So thank you for the opportunity to show you the great work that my team has done. And I can take any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
And
Noah.
thank you, Director Schaefer.
I'd just like to ask a question on there because I had a phone call last night, somebody trying to get on the interactive map. And they said that it says location, but can we put or address on it? Because they said they couldn't get in by location. Now, it might be the internet in our area, but they would like to know if they could have or address on it.
Oh,
That's where you're going.
yes, definitely. So through the chair to Director Schaefer, thank you for the question. They can definitely type in an address if they wish, or they can type in a property identifier if they know the property identifier or reserve name. And you mentioned that they are not able to kind of like type in the location. There's also a contact information that's available on the application. They can contact my team for any assistance.
Thank you, Director O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for getting this together. I've had this question multiple times already from people that live in the TNRD, and it takes me quite a while to figure out where they're supposed to vote. And even if I don't have the internet now, at least I can just go to it and figure it out for them. But it really just simplifies these things, and quite frankly, just makes it easier to get out and vote. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Director Watson.
Thank you very much. And this is very, very cool for people who have computers and know how to use them. And I know this board is really tired of me saying what other regional districts do. But did you know that as you drive up Highway 97, there's a little sign that says entering area L of the Caribou Regional District? Imagine that, you know, so everybody would know exactly what area they were in. What a concept.
Are there any further questions? I'm not, Director Schaefer.
My question is directed to Mr. Hildebrand about our advanced polling in Area A. This is the third time the date's being changed. So is this the last time?
Yes, it is the last time. We
Because
got that
people
in,
think it's the 14th.
and we've made that correction this morning, and we'll continue to communicate that
Well,
change.
the paper had the 4th. I've put down the 14th because that's what I was told. Now we're at the 13th.
You have any further comments? It's been looked after and changed now, and we'll continue to communicate to make sure that people know it's the correct date and time and location. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for the presentation, and I would second Director O'Reilly's motion. I think that is just such a wonderful addition. And thank you again ever so much for putting it together. It'll be of tremendous help to people, and a wonderful job. And we're very fortunate to have you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to pull up the presentation here. Just have a few, as a wrap up to our board term, I'd like to just take you through a short presentation. Again, on our progress update with respect to the forensic audit, and again, our board strategic plan. So just a few quick topics. So based on progress we've made in September and October, we expect this number to be higher, but as it sits now, our forensic audit, as you can see on the screen, we're about 84% complete on our recommendations. And that was as of August 30th. I think we're probably closer to 90%, or we'll be there very soon. 100% complete on 35 of those 65 recommendations, about 50 to 95% complete on the 19 recommendations, and then in progress on the remaining 11, some as close as 50%. So our initial goal was to be substantially complete by the end of 2022. And we're on track to complete that. So I'm very, very proud of that. We've made some huge strides that have been made with our organization to be more transparent and accountable in the past 2.5 years. And I'm very proud again, like I said, to have this work complete, and very proud of the team that's kind of pulled this together. Some of the highlights that make up these changes are things that you'd all be mostly aware of, and that'd be the policy framework that had been approved, the new board expense policy that was approved, procurement and policy and delegation of authority bylaw that was complete just moments ago. Code of conduct policy update, conflict of interest policy update, where there's a sign off by staff. And this is something that's going to happen yearly, and make sure that our staff are declaring and understanding the policy on an annual basis. Credit card policy and a purchase order policy that's being completed now. That'll be done in November. Committee restructured that we all seen and seen over the last number of months. The CAO performance review implemented and complete as of today. Board procedure bylaw update, terms of reference have been changed for all of our committees and bylaws. The request for proposals complete with the external auditor, and you're going to see that on today's agenda for the next 5 years. List of vendors used and shared on our website on a monthly and quarterly basis. Expense claims form, incident reporting forms updated, policies being reviewed on a regular basis, implementation of other policies, and most importantly, and like I said already, I'm very proud of the culture shift that's happened over the last number of years here at the TNRD, and our success behind that. So we're all very happy about that. So what does this all mean? So overall, strong progress against all 18 key action items or recommendations, improved awareness, training on code of conduct and conflicts, vast improvement to culture, practices of the TNRD, clear outline for delegated approvals of agreements and contracts, improved bylaws, committee restructuring in terms of reference, help that outline board jurisdiction. And then we wrap this all up in a great online version where it's at tnrd.ca/accountability that I know Colton is working hard on. This is a screenshot of just the top of that page where you can easily find financial information, policies, progress on recommendations specifically. And as you navigate further down the page, there's other background information of all the great work that's been done. So perhaps I'll stop there as kind of halfway through my presentation, just to see if there's any questions at all about the accountability page and some of the work that we've done over the last year or so.
Questions for Mr. Hildebrand? Director Singh?
Thank you, Chair Gillis, and really well done, Mr. Hildebrand. I think it's really wonderful. I guess a couple questions I have. One is we have all those great policies in place now. It's really looking really good. Is there kind of a review period that we have kind of in place because of these are kind of living policies, and as we go through, not necessarily in 5 years or maybe 5, but not in 2 years, but in a longer time horizon, what is the sort of goal around or the plan in terms of review? Number one question.
Yeah, thank you. Good question, Director Singh. I know we have a policy framework that was adopted by the board back at the beginning on how we're going to review those on a regular basis and the frequency of reviewing those to ensure that we're always up to date and making sure we're following best practices and leading by example throughout the province.
The second question is, a long time ago, the city was involved with this national organization, which is actually was kind of a third-party validator of the sort of work. I think it was called at that time a National Quality Institute or something. Dr. Rothenberger probably knows more about than I do. But when I first joined council, that was kind of a big thing, and we were kind of getting folks in to kind of actually just independently review that. So as well as our independent financial auditing, is there maybe a thought about looking at maybe third-party validators of all the work we done around the other parts of the organization?
Yeah, again, good question. I think that's something we can look at, and I think the finance committee or the new finance and accountability committee will be able to dig into that and provide direction. But staff will certainly take that to heart and see if we can use them as a resource as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Hildebrand at this point in his presentation? Carry on bravely, Mr. Hildebrand.
All right, take you home here, switching gears to our strategic plan. So this report can also be found in your, we printed a copy for you as well. And it's also found on the accountability webpage that I just shared a snapshot on. So it's been progressing very well. over the last 2 years or so, 2.5 years, when we sat down and built a 2-year strategic plan with the board. And I'm proud to say that we've made some good accomplishments. So as you all would remember, we have 6 strategic focus areas, and I'm just going to quickly just go through the 6 categories and just speak to kind of our completion. So the very first one is economic sustainability and resiliency. We're 50% complete. We're 40% in progress, and we got about 10% on hold. And the only one on hold right now is the development of an asset management plan, as you can see on the screen. But some good work within this strategic focus area. The film studio feasibility study has been complete. That the business case study was done, and we're working on a feasibility on a site right now. We also did a community forest feasibility report, which the board saw last year. When it comes to supporting businesses, we continue to do this and this where we can, particularly through provincial programs. I know that many of you are aware of the COVID-19 funds that were allocated to a lot of our communities and facilities and continue to support economic recovery. So great results there, and we're still have a long ways to go to get that complete, but we're well on our way. Moving to livability, connectivity, and infrastructure. So we're 52% complete, 43% in progress, and then 5% not started. And really the only one that is not started was the project for the Royal Inland Hospital parking area, which we had on our strategic plan that just didn't come forward quite yet. I know that's still a topic of interest going forward. On top of that, all of our scaled solid waste sites are running new software, and we rolled out the new EcoCard program earlier this year. Our GIS system has been reviewed with exciting progress is happening on our open data strategy. And GIS will be developing a strategy for that in the next several years. The regional broadband strategy was approved by the board back in 2021, and we're continuing to have discussions on improvements. The water meter project is now complete throughout the Tnrd, and we're very happy to have that done. The new Boston Flats Eco Depot is also complete and will be opening up very soon. And then, as you know, we're continuing to progress on capital projects on our fire halls, which is also exciting going forward. Our third strategic focus area, and that's strategic relationships and partnerships. This is something that I would consider ongoing all the time, but it's something that was part of our strategy. We're 45% complete, 55% in progress. We're continuing to engage with our partners and First Nations, and today was a great example of that. We also partnered with the Kamloops and the city this year to create the orange crosswalk that you see outside of our building. We just attended UBCM, and our staff are continuing to work with neighboring jurisdictions. And the board continues to help push on community issues, such as funding of small water systems. We've updated our employee recognition strategy. Many of the items in the relationship, as I said, are ongoing, and this is something that we're going to continue to focus on moving forward. One great highlight would be our newsletters that'll be moving forward. Board highlights and grant funding are just some of the things to mention on how we are communicating and engaging with our communities. The next one is dynamic communication and branding. We are 75% complete with 25% in progress. Newsletter project is now complete. Phase 1 of our GIS open data strategy is also now complete. We're working to consistently share public information online, on social media, by mail, and have also made great strides in our website updates in additions to improve transparency. We have continued to engage residents in a meaningful way, and we'll continue to do that. Area number 5 is on emergency planning and response. We are 11% complete, 67% in progress, and 22% on hold. Most of the ones on hold were due to the Merritt flood recovery and due to improved direction on another item. But joint response with First Nations is an ongoing need. We are frequently in communication with our neighboring First Nations. We have explored road rescue through the Tnrd fire departments, and this is now in place for Little Fort Fire Department. Training for our Tnrd fire service has increased with the hiring of our new fire officer earlier this year. And we continue to make progress on communication with our neighboring jurisdictions on emergency management and fire smart initiatives. And then finally, climate action and environmental stewardship. We are 30% complete, 40% in progress, 10% not yet started, and 20% on hold. So this one is a tough one right now. Items on hold are due to waiting on word of a grant application that we put forward, and also due to the pause in the provincial CARIP program during COVID, which will soon be resuming. Great progress on many of our mandatory recycling bylaws, which is now complete and fully in effect. And we continue to expand education for invasive plants throughout the regional district. So to wrap it all up, here is how we're looking right now from a progress standpoint. 90% complete or in progress, which I'm very happy of. We had a very difficult few years when it comes to fires, floods, audits. We were still able to accomplish a lot of things against our strategic plan. So I'm confident that 90% of it will be complete here by year end or just into the new year, with 7 or about 10% not yet started or on hold for different reasons that I explained. So that's our quick update on our forensic, or I'm sorry, on our strategic plan. And I hope that once the new board's in place, we will sit down and build a very strong strategic plan moving forward. But I would take any questions you may have on this update.
Director Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Hildebrand. On the matter of the parking lot for the hospital, while it's true most of the regional hospital district is comprised of us, but it's a bit of a disservice to our colleagues from Columbia Shuswap and the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District that also sit there. I'm wondering, going forward into the next term, that you would maybe have a strategic plan for the regional hospital district that would be somewhat separate than the TNRD one, because that it's your only red dot. I didn't want you to go down with a red dot.
Yeah,
So
totally. Good advice. And that's something that we'll take to the first meeting coming up. Thank you for that.
Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Hildebrand? Seeing none, I will thank you for that presentation. That takes us to item 8.1.2, the appointment of an interim chief financial officer. There is a recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Don't see any. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. The amended 2022 board and committee meeting calendar. There is now a recommendation. Is moved, seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Approval of discretionary grants and aids from Electoral Area A, Wells Gray Country. There is a recommendation.
Move recommendation 1.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried.
Move recommendation 2.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried.
Move recommendation 3.
Is there any discussion of recommendation 3? I see none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. That takes us to the award of audit contract and appointment of auditor for the years 2022 to 2026. And there is a report from the Deputy CFO dated October 6th, 2022. And there is a recommendation. Anybody wish there's any from staff? Yeah, thank you. Moved. Seconded. Is there any discussion? Director Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some doubts about this. I'm afraid I wasn't terribly thrilled with the BDO report that we got for the money that we put into it. And I'm not sure that having that same group of people do our audits for the year is so I'm not really happy about this. I would hope that maybe Mr. Hildebrand could tell us if there's someone else that could do it.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Yeah, to you, Chair Gillis, to Director Elliott. The organization that did our forensic audit is a completely different organization. It's the same company, BDO, but the one that we're recommending to award for the financial auditing is local. It's based here in Kamloops, and was one of two proponents that put forward their proposals. The forensic audit team was based out of Vancouver and has nothing to do with our audited financials.
Thank you, Director Blackwell.
Yeah, I'm impressed with two things here. The recommendation that we switch auditors on a regular basis, 5-year basis to another one. I like that. And as far as the local BDO office here, we use them. Mario Parati and his colleagues are exceptionally good auditors, and really enjoy working with them.
Thank you, Director Schaefer.
I would just like to know, what have we been paying for auditors now per year? And is this it? Are they going to do an audited one, or are they just going to do an ordinary?
So through Chair to Director Schaefer, this audit is specifically for our audit services. It's in the $30,000 to $40,000 mark that we've been paying for in the past. This is just audited financials. The other request that the board had was to have an accounting firm do some of our internal investigation or auditing once in a while. That'll come to the actual finance committee in the new year, and we'll get direction from that committee going forward through the board to make that decision. But this is just for the auditing services that we would come to see on an annual basis over a 5-year term.
Will they be certified or not?
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Director Hildebrand? Director Rothenberger for Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you. Just a note further to Director Elliott's comments that it struck me too, looking through it, that BDO recommended the change in policy on the contracts, and then BDO gets the contract. So might be a good idea just to make sure that the separation between the two BDOs is absolutely clear on any communication.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Thank you. To address your question, Director Rothenberger, that's something we took into consideration. It was a fair RFP process. We had 2 proposals that came through. We went through criteria like we would with anyone and awarded the one with the best proposal. So we did our due diligence. We checked references, and we had a very favorable response from the references as well. So I know we've done our due diligence, but I can see how the perception could be there, but it is a complete separation, and we'll need to make sure that we clarify that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry?
Director Brown on the screen.
Oh, Director Brown.
I just wanted to mention, we in the city of Merritt also use BDO, and they're a pretty reputable firm. What I did want to mention is auditors are required, and BDO does this. They require to let us know if there's third-party connections or liabilities, and they usually put that in the report, and they're upfront with us on what that is all about. And that's an automatic for any auditor.
Thank you. Is there any further comment or question? I have Director Rain.
Yeah, just a follow up on Director Christian's comment about hospital district. The motion includes hospital district, but we're not the hospital district here at this moment. As long as we understand that probably at some later date, the hospital district should pass a similar motion.
Ms. Campbell?
I can comment on this because Ms. Fox and I spoke about this. And so looking back on past awards of this contract and looking at the Hospital District Act, which applies to the hospital board, the auditor for the regional district is automatically the auditor for the hospital district. So this board is able to award the contract to BDO for both the hospital district and the regional district.
Thank you. I see no further questions. I have one, Mr. Hildebrand. That is, and you may not have the answer to this off the top of your head, but what was the amount of the last contract that would have been KPMG? How much have we been paying for this in the past?
Chair Gillis, I believe Ms. Fox is just looking that up right now. So feel free, Ms. Fox, if you have it handy.
Hey, it's my first time. I forgot to press the button. So overall, just rough math, it was about 30,000. It started at $25,000. It incrementally went up to $30,000 in this last year. However, in this last year, due to the increased risk for the audit firm, there was an additional $35,000 that was on there. So overall, it's probably equivalent to what this new amount is. The 252,000, but I would have to go and look at my calculation, which would take me a little bit of time.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said following overall.
Or for the 5-year term is what I was referring to overall.
Okay.
So this 5-year term, the total is coming out to 252,000, including the hospital district. And if I did a quick calculation, if you want me to take that time.
What she's saying, Chair Gillis, is it's very similar to what you're seeing in front of you, but we will follow up with an exact number.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that. Okay, so there is a recommendation. It's been moved, seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Did you want your vote recorded, Director Elliott? Thank you. Does that cover both? That recommendation cover both, Ms. Campbell? Okay. I didn't see them numbered as a recommendation, so I assumed it did. Tobiano Street Lighting Parks and Trails Services. There is a recommendation. There are 2 recommendations.
I'll move recommendation number 1.
Is there any discussion? It has been seconded. I didn't catch the second. Okay, there's no discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? That's carried. Wells Gray Country Services Committee, terms of reference. We have a recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Community Resiliency Investment Program 2023 Fire Smarting. You're getting ahead of me. There is a recommendation. Moved was it seconded? Yeah. Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Director Rothenberger, then Director Stamer.
Just that there's a bit of a typo, I think, in the report. On page 2, it says we saw 459 wildfires burning 497 hectares. I don't think that's correct, is it?
Do you want to talk about that, Mr. Vieira?
Sure. The typo was missing 3 zeros. Yeah.
I think that happened in my
But
last
correct, it was a
expense
typo.
check too. But Director Stamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask through you to staff just for a quick rundown on what is being asked, because we've got three recommendations basically in one. So can we get Mr. Vieira to just give us an update on what's going on with this?
Yeah, thanks. So the board directions required to submit the grant application through UBCM. We haven't completed the whole grant application process yet. But I can highlight sort of the programs that were going to be part of that. And the number one ask and interest from the communities out there is the rebate program that Fire Smart offers. So that's where we have money eligible, or we have a budget essentially allocated through this grant to pay people up to $500 for getting certified Fire Smart for their homes. So that would be the number one program application. We're also going to be applying for staff funding for staff that are involved in doing this program. The great thing about the Fire Smart program is the majority of programs are 100% funded. So we are going to be asking for basically as much as we can to, and then depending on what gets approved, we'll be coming back to the board with a more detailed report on what the program will look like in 2023.
Director Stamer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks very much for that, Jamie. Also, when we were down at UBCM, there were other communities that were participating in the previous programs, and one community, they put a lot of work and effort into their wildfire mitigation program. They offered, it was $500 per resident in the process of cleaning up their properties, and they actually had 0 people apply, and we were shocked. And then talking to the ministry, they said, yes, there's going to be even that much more money available to all our residents to be able to do that, to help us with wildfire mitigation in our communities. I think it's a great idea that we should be doing this.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. It takes us to the building permit activity highlights for September. Second. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Board procedure bylaw discussion, a verbal update from Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. I'm actually going to turn it over to you because I know that you had said that yourself and some other directors had some concerns about one of the changes that was made to the board procedure bylaw regarding electronic participation. So the report did go to the board at the August out of town board meeting, and I outlined those changes in the report. And just for the board's awareness and just as a reminder, so there's a difference between electronic meetings and electronic participation. Electronic meetings are now permitted in the legislation. The legislation was recently updated to allow for full electronic meetings in certain circumstances, but it must be contained in the board procedure bylaw. So we felt it important to make that change should we ever find ourselves in a situation where there's a pandemic or another pandemic or an emergency where the entire board would need to meet virtually. And then we also followed guidance and best practices around electronic participation, which is where individual board members for various reasons may need to participate electronically. The change that we made after reviewing a number of other local governments procedure bylaws was to put a cap at 4 meetings per year on that. That seemed to be the most common approach that most local governments took, with the ability to increase that amount with approval of the board. So just a recap on that particular section.
Director Schaefer.
I would like to know on those 4 meetings, do they have to have a reason that is stated, or can they just say, I want to come?
Through the chair to Director Schaefer. So it's exceptional circumstances, and we didn't define that. And speaking to other local governments, they had also moved away from trying to define that because it could be subjective as to what an exceptional circumstance is. And so it's difficult because I understand that it would be helpful to sort of define it, but I don't think we could have an all-encompassing list of what an exceptional circumstance might be. But it can't just be because I don't feel like it.
I just find.
Director Schaefer and then Director Stamer.
I just find that when some people say they'd like to come by Zoom, there's no explanation of why. It's just, I want to be there by Zoom.
Through the chair to Director Schaefer, and this may come up with some other directors' questions and comments. One of the things that we weren't able to do, which was recommended by the ministry and which we still absolutely plan to do, it's on our list of policies, is to bring forward an electronic meeting policy. So the bylaw allows for electronic meetings and electronic participation, but the policy is really where it sets out some more detailed parameters. For example, say someone is participating electronically in a closed meeting, we would put in the policy that there's a requirement that they must have their camera on, or they can't be somewhere out of the country. So that's something that we could absolutely address in an electronic meetings policy.
Director Damer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to staff. So where are we on committee meetings?
Director Brown as well.
Yep.
Like numbers or participation
Through
electronic?
the chair to Director Steamer, I have to look at the procedure bylaw, but I believe we put the same cap of 4 meetings for committees as well. Yeah, yes. Well, I guess if you're on multiple committees, it's just 4 meetings, 4 committee meetings per year. So I don't think it would be per committee. I think it would just be regular committees.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, the reason I'm asking the question, and there's probably going to be an opportunity with the new board to be able to discuss this even more. But I mean, if you put it in perspective, if somebody ends up going, let's say they go on vacation that's been scheduled for 6 months or whatever, I mean, you could easily burn up 2 or 3 of those all in one shot within 1 week. You know, is that really necessarily fair? Or the same as being sick, the same thing? So, I mean, we don't need to clarify it today, but I'm just making a point that as we go forward, we should make sure that we flush this out and make sure what's fair to everyone.
Through the chair to Director Steamer. So it's actually 2 for committee meetings, but you're correct. We should probably clarify and do some more discussions with the new board on that.
Director Brown. Director Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. One of them is, what about our alternatives? Why do we need alternatives if we've just got access to Zoom? Should there be, if the alternative is unavailable, then Zoom might be available. I mean, right now, that was my issue. My alternate was not available. I've tested positive for COVID. I can't be at this meeting. So Zoom was the option. On the other hand, we've got, I've lost my train of thought, committee meetings or committee of the whole, where attendance is really poor. And when it isn't all that poor, there's people leaving partway through the meeting. Does just showing up and leaving partway through, is that acceptable? Or are we expected to be the whole meeting? And is our pay changed at that point as well? These are just questions that I'm looking at these, this policy, and I'm thinking, is it going to cover any of that? And should it cover any of that? I'm not sure, but I'm putting that question out there.
Ms. Campbell, did you want to respond to either of those questions?
Through the chair to Director Brown. So certainly the ability for directors to participate electronically is not meant to be in place of sending your alternate. If you are absolutely physically and virtually unable to participate in a board meeting, the expectation would be that you send your alternate. But if there's a reason, say, for example, there's a snowstorm and the road's closed, so you can participate in the meeting, but you just can't physically get there, then that would be potentially an exceptional circumstance where you could participate electronically because you also can't send your alternate. And with respect to Director Brown's other points, I think those are great points and we can note those down. And this is something that the new board can certainly revisit in our intent. And I believe I noted this in the report that went to the board with the board procedure bylaw is that this is a living document and it's the board's, it's your bylaw, right? And so the intent is for it to be a living document and for the board to continuously review it and make sure that it's meeting the needs of this board.
Thank you, Director Blackwell.
On there.
Director Rothenberger.
Well, thanks, Chair. My point has been covered. It was going to be about the availability of alternates and how that fits into it. I think that should always be the first choice, but that's something that can be covered when it comes to creating the policy on the electronic meetings, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is where I do actually get up on my podium. It's a good time, the last meeting. I don't like electronic meetings, not because I live the furthest away, but because part of the ambience of the board is you get to know your directors. And I don't believe that you can get to know directors over electronic means. We're here as a public service, and that's why we come to these meetings, whether it be a committee meeting or it be a regular board meeting or a hospital district meeting. The personal interaction between everybody is an important part of what we do. So I would not support electronic meetings. And so I don't know if I should move an amendment to eliminate that or leave it to the new board. I will take your advice on that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whether you should move an amendment at this point or not either. If you're free to suggest one, but I think what you might want to do, and I'm just tossing this off, is you might want to ask that this matter be brought up early in the next term by the new board and a further discussion. You could ask staff to make sure that it's brought up for further discussion.
Through the staff, and Mr. Chairman, do we have to do this today?
Through the chair to Director Quinn, the intent of this was just to have a discussion as was requested. So my understanding is that in order to do amendment, we'd have to draft a new bylaw. And so staff's perspective would be to wait and have this conversation with the new board, because this is the last meeting of this board. So we'd be bringing a new amended bylaw to the new board that will not have had the opportunity to even become familiar with the board procedure bylaw yet. So and I'll leave it to the will of this board, but we can take these comments and this feedback and include it in the discussion with the new board.
I really don't like putting stuff off to other boards, but I think in this case, I would kind of do that. With that electronic in there, I would vote against this as it sits. So, and we can go from there. In the event of emergencies, people can electronically participate. Road closures, rock slides, landslides, all those kind of interesting things. But on my experience, I don't think I've missed any meetings. So, and I'm the furthest away. Thank you.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair. Just with all due respect, this was voted on back at the August meeting, you said it was? It was unanimous. And the only reason it's on the agenda is Chair Gillis asked us to bring on for discussion. So we were hoping to bring this forward to the next board and actually have that discussion at that point. So that's the only reason it's on the agenda now. So making an amendment now, I'm not sure would be the appropriate course of action.
So then, Mr. Chairman, should I move that we postpone this discussion to the new board? Is that the way to do this?
I think it's open to you to move that we instruct staff to bring this forward early in the term of the new board, if you wish to make that motion.
You don't have to support me, but I will make that motion that this discussion take place early in the new term next year. So moved.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? No discussion? Oh, Director Singh.
Yeah, I think there's always a discussion around what existing boards leads to new boards so close to election. I think it's worthwhile having a discussion, actually, the folks who were around the table for a while. Some of us may not be here in November. And so I think it's a good practice not to vote on anything here, but to actually have staff hear what we have to say, because I've been on this board for 8 years. The person who comes in new may be on the board for all of 2 weeks. And there's obviously value in both perspectives, but I think that they should make the decision, the new board, but we should have this discussion here. So I with all due respect to my friend Director Quinn, I won't support the motion.
Okay, and before I go any further, Director Watson, you were on my list to speak.
Thank you. It says in invited presentations, number 16.1, the TNRD may, with the chair's approval, invite a person or persons The TNRD, if you look up in the meetings, it's the entire board. How many members of the board would it take to ask the chair's approval to invite a person? Or would it have to be the entire board?
I'm not sure we're talking about the same section here.
Oh, a different section, then I'll shut up until you're ready to talk about that section.
Ms. Campbell? This was not a matter of inviting people to speak at the board, as I understand.
It's all in
So-
the same procedure, bylaw.
Director Quinn? Yes, I understand that, and I was hoping that the comment was to speak to the motion. There's a motion on the floor, moved and seconded, that staff be instructed to bring the question of electronic participation forward at an early date to the new board following the election, October 15th. I'm not saying that should necessarily be at the November 24th meeting or whenever it is, but at an early date, November, December, or possibly even January. That suit you okay, Director Quinn?
Perhaps after the education sessions, the board is, the staff is planning for the new board. Or in that time, it would be a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm just, sorry, Chair
6.
Gillis, I'm just gonna read out the names so that our recording
carried.
secretary has the names. So Director Singh, Director Bass, Director Watson, Director Blackwell, Director Schaefer. Thank you.
Thank you, that's carried. Wow. That brings us to committees. Internal committees, EA directors, Director Kershaw.
Okay.
Okay, did you have further representations with respect to the board procedure bylaw, Director Watson?
Yes, in 16.1, it says the TNRD may, with the chair's approval, invite a person or persons or organization to make a presentation to the board. In the meanings of the words, it says the TNRD is the board of directors. Does that mean it takes the entire board to ask the chair's approval, or is there a certain amount of the board that can ask for the chair's approval?
Through the chair, Director Watson. So apologies, I wasn't prepared to speak to all sections of the board procedure bylaw today, but I believe that the intent behind this was, and we may need to clarify it, was the TNRD as an organization. So for example, Mr. Vieira might get contacted by BC Wildfire, and BC Wildfire might say, we have a really important update that we would like to give to the Thompson-Nicola Regional District Board of Directors. And so Mr. Vieira will check with the chair and the corporate officer and say, can we invite, actually, that's the opposite. That's them asking. Mr. Vieira might think of having BC Wildfire come and present to the board and want to invite them to present. So that's I think what we mean by the TNRD as an organization. So staff would maybe identify an organization that should be invited to present to the board with the chair's approval.
Thank you, Director Duty.
Thank you, Chair, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we just approved having this discussion moved to sometime in November when the new board is there. So I don't know why we're having this discussion now if we've already settled it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether you're right or whether you're wrong. I know that the question of electronic participation in meetings was referred to the future board. Is there any further discussion with respect to the board procedure bylaw? Seeing none, that takes us to committees. You get your chance now, Director Kershaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to move a recommendation on the Area Directors Committee.
Sorry, is there any discussion? I'm seeing none. All in favor? Yep. Opposed, if any? That's carried. Uh, Policy and Governance Committee, Director Roden.
Thank you. We have two recommendations here, so I will move recommendation one, that the board approve the new procurement policy.
Second.
Any discussion? Director Rain.
My apologies, I just read through it. In the procurement policy, is there some provision that would prevent the same a contract for $70,000 being awarded several times inside of a time period, or being extended within the same period? I just didn't see it. Maybe you built that in.
Thanks, Director Rain. I hope Ms. Campbell can answer that, and that triggered a question from me.
Through the chair to Director Rain, I don't have it right in front of me, but yes, we did. We built in some language around repetitive awards of contracts. So we have certainly addressed that in this policy.
Thank you.
I'm happy.
Okay, is there any further discussion? So I have a question along the same lines, Ms. Campbell. Is there any, and I did read the procurement policy, but is there any provision there to protect against add-ons or extensions, or you get a $70,000 contract that suddenly the contractor can say, well, gee whiz, I hadn't anticipated this, so that's going to be an extra $10,000, and now we have an $80,000 contract. Is there any protection against that?
Through the chair, the chair. So we did actually, we included some provisions around scope changes and contract amendments. Previously, the policy was silent on that. And so there's a bit more rigor and process around when there's a scope change and when there's a contract amendment that will result in an increase. And there are approval mechanisms in place when that happens.
Thank you. Did you have something? You're right, so. Okay, is there any further discussion with respect to recommendation number one? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried.
And move second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion with respect to recommendation number two? I'm seeing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Utilities Systems Committee, Director Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had our last utility systems from this board yesterday. We were missing a couple of the directors, but we had a quorum. And we did updates on the maintenance of the 11 water systems and the 2 sewage systems. And also we looked at the money that's going to be spent over the next few years on the capital projects. And I can tell you this committee is going to be very busy for the new board.
Thank you. Wells Gray Country Services, Director Schaefer.
Move the minutes for information only. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Regional Solid Waste Management, Director Schaefer.
Meeting was October the 5th, and the minutes will be forthcoming.
Thank you. That takes us to external committees, Fraser Basin, Director Rice.
No meeting. Next meeting is October 12th and 13th, full board in Vancouver. Thank you.
Thank you. Municipal Finance Authority, Director O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No meeting, no report. Next meeting, end of February.
Thank you. Municipal Insurance, Director Duty.
Being consistent, no meeting, no report.
Shuswap Watershed Council, Director Crow.
No meeting, no report.
Kamloops Airport Authority, Director Roden.
Next meeting will be early December.
Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Director Singh.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. No minutes from the board meeting yet in September. There'll be a meeting in December in Ottawa. I did want to cover a couple of things we've talked about within the BC caucus of FCM that would be of interest to directors here. One is rural healthcare and the idea of the federal transfers increasing from the feds for healthcare in provinces. The other issue that was raised by elected director up in the north I think in Kamloops was this idea again of making sure elected area directors are resourced properly, have recognition that they need to do the work. And then last one is one that I've consistently raised, more of an urban issue, but it's coming into more rural areas too, is the issue around community safety and repeat offenders. So that's a bit of an update for you on that.
Thank you, Director Rice.
Yes, from Chair through Director Singh. You said rural healthcare, there's a federal transfer increase on that?
No, that's what we're lobbying for.
Okay.
So we're backing up the provincial governments on that lobby effort.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for that clarity. Thank you for allowing me to be more clear, something like that.
Director Elliott.
Director Singh, what is the FCM board dealing with across Canada lack of doctors and nurses? Do they have a policy on it? Are they getting involved in it? Any of the above?
Director Elliott, I'm not sure whether there's conversations around that specifically. The conversation is more generally around immigration. I would say, but I think that's good feedback to pass along. So I can look at that further and then find out for you. And I can also talk about that more if I look forward to being there again.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is that we see every night on the national news, there's not a province across this country that hasn't got that health issue. And maybe it's about time FCM took a really good look at it and did some lobbying for the country.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you. Community Energy Association Director Blackwell.
No meeting, no report.
Thank you.
Sorry.
There are directors.
Yeah, so Director Blackwell, just thanks for your report. I'm actually I'm chairing the Community Association board this year, so there is actually a meeting tomorrow. But and you're welcome to be. You're invited to be there. So I hope you can come.
No meeting, no report.
No meeting. Thanks, Director Blackwell and Director Elliott. Your mic's on. There's no notices of motion. That takes us to new business. Director Singh.
Just because it is the last board meeting of the year, I could have as practice of the end of every board to say thank you to everybody, to say best wishes to our retiring directors, the ones who are running again, best wishes to your election, and those who are acclaimed, lucky you, but democracy suffers a bit when that happens, I think too. I will also say that this board is challenging as it has been. I'm very proud of the work that we've done on the forensic audit and getting these recommendations unanimously through. So I think we've had a lot of turmoil this term for sure. But I also want to just reflect back to all of you the fact that we've got the ship in a really good place after this very challenging years. So hopefully the new board can be a beneficiary of that, of all of our work. You don't get to heaven without going through a bit of hell. And I think we've been through that. So hopefully the new board will be able to take that on and build on the good work that this board has done. This is a very challenging time. So thank you all and very best wishes.
Thank you, Director Singh. Director Kershaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mean, along the same line, this is going to be my last regular meeting. Tomorrow we have a committee of the whole meeting, but I'd like to thank the staff, the board, and the many great years that I've had on representing Area O in the North Thompson here. And also especially thank those that have voted for me over the years. It's been a pleasure and I'm going to miss it, but I'm going to be glad to start something new too. So thank you everybody for my years on this board. It was really something.
Is there any further new business? There is indeed. Director Rice, then Director Rothenberger.
Thank you, Chair. I got a heartfelt letter this morning from the family of Ed Buter, who was unceremoniously swept away, not with the flood. He was already out, but his home was, and it's been helicoptered away, and he'll never go home because there's no place to put his home. However, they are building a new bridge. He moved there in 1959 into the Nicola Valley there, and the family has requested that as there is already a canoe bridge named after Mary Canoe, and he is a very pioneer. I won't go into the lengthy letter that all the children, the 4 children have sent, but I'd like to put a motion on the floor that this board support the naming of the new bridge, Buter Bridge, after Ed Buter, who is now, I think, 92 or 93, still hanging around. And so I just like to have a letter of support from this board send to MOTI.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Is anyone opposed? Hard to oppose that one. That's carried unanimously. Director Rice, Director Rothenberger.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I have a few observations I'd like to offer on this, my last regular board meeting. It's hard to believe that I've been at this table for a total of 14 years, including 6 years as a municipal director and the past 8 as a rural director. I got to say, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to serve the people of Kamloops and especially the residents of Area P during that time. I must say my time as an electoral area director has taught me much more about the region and the regional district than I could possibly absorb as a municipal director. Both positions are important, of course, but I particularly enjoyed the opportunity of getting to know about so many communities around the region, particularly in Area P. You can't generalize about country folks, but because they're individuals, but they are simply the best. Each rural community has special attributes all its own, and that's been a big part of the reward of serving as a director. During this past term, we've struggled with some adversities, including fires and flood and COVID, and the TNRD has always been there for people. When we're not dealing with natural and human-caused disasters, we're busy providing everyday necessities and life enhancements for the people we serve. While we as a board receive the most attention for major projects, it's often the small stuff that's just as important and brings as much satisfaction. Whether it's an individual taxpayer's concern about a messy property next door or a community's need for an AET or convenient hours at the transfer station or ravenous mosquitoes, even a street light or needing new property address signs so ambulances can find them when needed. We work with people close to home and make a real difference. Sometimes a big part of our job is working with and lobbying other levels of government on everything from potholes to major policy shifts. What this board does is important. And Mr. Chair, you and I have had our moments, but I've appreciated the fact that as the directors of adjacent electoral areas, we've always worked together for the good of our residents, from the new grandstand at the Pritchard Rodeo facilities, and possibly more important, the new roof for the beer garden, the Pritchard Beach, and the new Monty Creek Fire Protection Service, which you deserve full credit for, but which I was pleased to support with funding from Area P. And speaking of Pritchard, obtaining $4.9 million in funding for a new state-of-the-art water filtration plant is a major deal. Elsewhere in Area P, the Black Pines water supply will at long last be secured, and funding has enabled major upgrades to community halls in Heffley and McClure, and so much more. As you know, volunteer community fire brigades hold a special place in my heart. Their brigades in places like Pinantan and Paul Lake and East Paul Lake do tremendous work, and I sincerely hope the next board will revisit the current policy of non-support and find ways to help these important community organizations do their work. It's no secret that I've often disagreed with the majority of the board and vice versa, but each new board meeting or issue brings us together again for another go. I recall my predecessor, John Sternig, commenting to the effect that when you try to make changes or have a brilliant idea and the board turns you down, if you keep fighting, and on the 3rd or 4th try, the board finally sees things your way, it's even sweeter than if you'd succeeded on the first try. I've had the satisfaction of experiencing that on a few occasions. So I want to thank you all for the times you've seen things my way, but I also want to thank you for the times my mind has been changed. I don't recall any specifics on when that might have happened, but I'm sure it has. I truly believe that the new board will have an easier time of things because of the hard work of this board over the past term. We have a great staff in place to carry out the many new policies and practices we've put in place, and they've been a pleasure to work with. It's possible, Mr. Chair, that although you're stepping into political retirement as I am, the new board and I will cross paths from time to time in my continuing part-time role in the media. I trust that returning directors will reassure the newbies not to worry about the media, because as we've learned after the past few years, the media are always fair, thorough, well-informed, absolutely certain of their facts, never jump to unsubstantiated conclusions, and never ever exaggerate. But for now, let me simply say that it's been fun, and though I hate to admit it, I'll miss you guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, thank you for those words, Director Rothenberger, and with respect to our mutual accomplishments in Pritchard, I share your thoughts that it was good working together, and we never had any difficulty along those lines. I have Director Stamer. I think it's the only other person I have now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I don't have quite the talk that Director Rothenberger had, but thanks very much for that, Director Rothenberger. A couple things. We're all familiar, I think, now about the electoral boundary changes that are coming down the pipe. 6 months ago, they had their first and only meeting in Kamloops, and now I think everybody's seen what they're up to. And quite frankly, Director Rothenberger had a really good point about rural BC and how the individuality of it and the historical significance that we have in our neighbors. And for the North Thompson to suddenly be added into a block where you're basically going from Vinsula to Bella Coola, I don't know how you're supposed to be adequately able to represent those constituents in that area. So I'm asking for all directors, present and future, to show up at the 18th at the Delta Hotel at 540 Victoria at 12 o'clock sharp, so that we can show our displeasure on what they're planning on doing with our electoral boundary area and the ones around the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. Secondly, I'd like to also thank all directors for your leadership and friendship in these last 4 years. Special thanks to the directors who are not seeking re-election, and good luck to all the directors involved in the coming election. So thank you.
Thanks, Director Stamer, and I certainly have every intention of being present at that meeting on the 18th. Is there any further new business? I'm seeing none. That takes the question period. I see no one in the gallery, so there's no one to ask questions. That would take us to a motion for a closed meeting. That will put us into closed, and we will take a break now for 10 or 15 minutes while the difficulties of electronics are sorted out by somebody else. Thank you.